Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me okay. If not, please let me know in the comments, but we should be up and running now. My name is Glenn Koehler. I'm the marketing and outreach, or marketing and PR director for the National Museum of Industrial History. Today we're going to be doing, sorry if there's cats in the way. We're going to be through some kind of rare photos of Martin Tower. I was lucky enough to be part of a team that went in to the tower multiple times in 2017 and 2019 with our volunteers, our historian, our curators, to get some artifacts to document the building before it was imploded. And I got a lot of access to kind of rare parts of the building, including the boiler room, as well as on top of the rooftop to see some of the sweeping vistas of Bethlehem. So I was in the building over a period about 5 years and took a lot of photographs. So pretty much today I'm just going to be sharing those photographs with you. And I'm also going to be, if you guys have any questions while we're going along, please ask them. There's a little bit of a delay in the feed to your comments coming through. So if there's a little bit of delay in me answering your questions, just hang tight. But kind of get started. So the first time I was actually in the building was in 2014. So they had it was a public Insta-meet, they called it. It was put on by the property manager and the owners of the building, one of their friends, I believe, and partially Discovery Lehigh Valley. So they had a kind of overwhelming response of people, way more than I think they were anticipating, but hundreds of people ended up showing up for their open day. So what I'm going to show you guys are some photos of that day. So this is back in this is in May of 2014. This is before they started kind of any of the demo work and started doing any sort of really intense demolition inside the building as they were doing over the past like 2 years before they imploded it. So let me pull up. Bear with me. This is the first time I'm doing this live. All right, there we go. So I'm just going to kind of go through the photos, tell a couple of stories about things that I remember, things that I was told about the building. The feed to your comments coming through. Hi, Mike, just chimed in, and Jeff Brown asked if I have a Zoom link. Let me try and post that for you guys. Just give me 1 second. To answer Stephanie's question, is this the building right across from the museum? This actually replaced the building that's right across from the museum. That building is generally known as the SGO building, or Steel General Offices, I believe it was known as. And that building was the original headquarters of Martin Tower. And in 1972, when Martin Tower opened, brought over most executive staff to Martin Tower, and then a bunch of the other administrative staff stayed back at the SGO building. That was still in use until the end. But
That
all the
building
executives
was
moved
the original.
over to Martin Tower. So let me pull up again our photos, and we'll start going from here. So this is the entryway. This is what people typically remember Martin Tower with. This is the big I-beam sculpture outside. You see down here, there's this big granite fountain. It's actually a funny story. This fountain only operated for a short period of time because when they were engineering this building, they didn't account for the wind shear coming down off the building. So the ice was just blowing from the fountain and covering the building, spraying all the people that were coming outside. And it was kind of a bad situation because they had all these very important executives and stuff coming out of their building, and they were just getting covered in water and ice in the middle of the winter. So that only operated for a short amount of time. There's only a few photos of it in operation that I've ever been able to find in our archives. There's a really beautiful one. It must have been taken not shortly after the building was built, and it was just covered in ice. You know, like in the wintertime, there's just ice all over the place. So pretty interesting little fact. This is one of my favorite older shots. Again, these are from 2014. Just kind of the monolith shot, black and white. At this point in time, so this is 6 years ago now, everything was very overgrown. Again, they hadn't started really doing any sort of work there. It was just very barren and a lot of plants growing. You can see, you know, they weren't doing any sort of maintenance to this. So the building actually was a series of different buildings across the area. These were known as the Annex Buildings. There were kind of a U-shaped annex buildings off of the tower. There's another area called the print shop, which I'll be getting to shortly. And there's also a couple of other outhouses. There's a powerhouse where they had all the boilers and stuff in the back. So it wasn't just Martin Tower, where there were various other buildings there. Amanda Marie asks, will this be available on the sites to rewatch later? It will be on our Facebook page to rewatch. I'm going to try to repost it on our website as well. So yeah, there will be opportunities to rewatch this later. Another photo kind of the outside. This is again the Annex building in the background. You see this reserved D&B customer. It wasn't just Bethlehem Steel and Tower. There is also, this is D&B is Dun and Bradstreet. There is, I believe, EDS there. Union Pacific was headquartered there. The railroad was headquartered there at one point. And so there were, you know, various different companies in there, just also besides Bethlehem Steel. Just kind of go through these. One of the loading docks in the back. You'll see these later on. I'll show you where these kind of go into. It's more of the overgrown area. This one's kind of neat. You can see it says corporate identification cards must be worn at all times when in the building. See the original key swipes and stuff there. So these are kind of in between the U shape of the Annex buildings. This is as well. There, at that point in time, again, this is 6 years ago, the inside of the building was still very intact. But there's a couple pieces of graffiti and stuff around the outside, some broken windows. You can see all the doors were chained shut. So this is the building that I was talking about before. This is the printery building. At one point, they changed this into being called the Learning Center. And I'll be showing you some more of the inside of this building in a little bit. We were in there taking out some mosaics and murals. So I'll be showing you that process. That was about 3 years after these were taken. So this is downstairs of the building. So there's this other entryway. This is the visitor's entrance. In this area, you'll be seeing this later on too. There were also this is, if you ever heard of like the gift shop and the barber shop. I'm forgetting what else was down there, but this is where all the kind of ancillary stuff of the building was. The entryway to the auditorium, I believe, was down by here. So the tower kind of had it all. They, if you wanted to get your haircut, at Martin Tower, you could, which is pretty interesting. And, they had their own gift shop, cafeteria, everything in there. These are the steps that led down to that area. Like I said, it was kind of downstairs. Somebody chimed in. Yep, there you go. Rudy's shop. Rudy was, if I'm recalling correctly, Rudy was the barber that was at Martin Tower. Some more kind of exterior shots looking up into the clouds. So this was off looking to this off the side of the building. Below this grass area is where the parking deck is, or the parking garage rather, which you'll be seeing later in kind of a dilapidated state. Oh, thanks, Jeff. So Rudy was the shop owner, the retailer for the gift shop. Again, some more just looking up. This is the colonnade outside of the building. Inside of this area was where part of the library was, and where some of the just the lobby area. So this is inside on the main floor. You can see these beautiful giant wooden, I'm not sure if they were mahogany or not, but wooden walls. Everybody always talks about how no expense was spared in this building. All of the doorknobs on the upper floors had inlaid I-beams, mahogany wood. All the doors, which you'll see later, very extremely heavy. I had to pick one up and take it out of the building, so extremely heavy. This is part of the library. This is actually kind of on a mezzanine level above the first floor. It's kind of in between the first floor and the second floor. So they had all the books, obviously, were taken out by now. A lot of these books are actually in the National Museum of Industrial History collection. I believe some went to the Canal Museum. Some might have went to Delaware to the Hagley Museum. So they're kind of spread out over 3 main sites, but we do have a lot of the books that were in this this library. So which our curator staff has been, going through and indexing and working on. This is the stairwell that would go up to that library area. Another shot of the empty shelves. At this point, there's some stuff just ripped open and exposed. So these are just kind of some of the circuitry that was in there. Took a few shots of that. One of the fire hoses. So this is, I wish I had a nicer shot of this because it's a little harshly lighted, but so this room was actually pitch black when I took this photo, but this is in the women's bathroom. And you can see this very Mad Men-esque sort of wallpaper. Everybody always jokes the women's bathroom has a couch. Well, this one actually did. All the artwork was still on the walls. So this is kind of cool. Like I said, when we walked in, this room was pitch black because there's no power in the building. So kind of very interesting to see this. And that was the women's bathroom on the main floor. So this day that we were allowed to go in the building in 2014, we were only allowed to go into the main floor of the building and around the outside. We weren't allowed to go upstairs or in any of the annexes at all. So kind of a limited view, but still pretty interesting. So this is a shot of, this is going towards the auditorium area. Through those doors would have gone to the auditorium. We weren't allowed to go back there at this point, but This kind of shows the state that the building was in at this time. It was kind of like, everybody just up and disappeared. There's still a lot of the original things in the building. It's a little spooky. And even in 2017, when we went in, you'll see in some of these later photos, it was still very just like people left their things there, their personal effects, and just left the building like they didn't know that they weren't coming back, which is kind of interesting. You can see at this point they still had the original computers there. At the front, this is the front desk of the building. They had the printers, the old Gateway computers, if anybody remembers those. These kind of old Art Deco looking clocks. So pretty interesting to be in there, especially before anybody touched anything. And just kind of the last shot of the fountain before I left. So that's the 2014 view. Take you guys next up. The next time that I visited the tower was in 2017. I found my photos here for you. So that's the 2014 view. Next up, the next time that I visited the tower was in 2017. There we go. So in 2017, we had gotten asked to check out these mosaics that were in the building. And these mosaics were in the printery building that I had mentioned before. And they depicted Stephen Day, who was the first printer in the colonies, and Gutenberg, who obviously invented the Gutenberg press. And so these mosaics were in the entryway. From what we've been told, they were hand cut in Italy. And once you see these mosaics, you'll see how intricate they were. And they were numbered individually on the back and sent over to the United States to Bethlehem Steel. And then they were hand assembled on the walls inside the printery. So we got contacted to try to save these. We worked out an agreement with the building owners that they loaned them to the museum. They're still in the museum right now. They're covered up with paneling to be part of our other exhibits, but these were on display during our printing exhibit in, I believe, 2017, 2018 maybe, but not long after these were removed from the tower. So this is the entire removal process. This took about 3 days. Go through and show you guys exactly what they did. So this is actually a very, it's kind of very time sensitive because they were tearing down this building as we were trying to get these out. It was very last minute sort of deal. So it was a kind of a race against time to get these out of there. This is why, they have do not touch, and you'll see it kind of on the back end of the wall too, so that they wouldn't rip the building down, unknowingly destroying these mosaics before we could remove them. So this is, I believe, the first time that we had gone over and taken a look at kind of what we had. The contractors here were taking a look at how they were going to be able to cut these out and remove them. So this is kind of the state of the building. You can see from the outside, they're already ripping stuff out, pretty dilapidated looking. That's what the tower looked like at the time. There's a kind of a good view where you can see the layout of the annex buildings, the kind of U shape with the main tower in the background. So these annex buildings were ripped down, I think not long after this project was completed. Those were the first things to go, as well as the printery building, which is the one that had these mosaics in them. So these guys were basically taking off the doors, taking off the framework of the entryway to the printery building. You can see they were using, kind of industrial saws to sort of cut through the walls. So they put this protective wrapping over the actual mosaics, because you can see the tiling went, the full length of the wall, but these mosaics, you can see kind of in the background there, are what we were particularly trying to preserve of the actual printing presses. So this is on the back end of these walls. Hi, Jeremy. You'll see yourself in a little bit. These are the back end of these walls, and they were cutting out from the back end to basically frame out these mosaics from the back and from the front. So they took out the drywall in the back, and you can see that there's this kind of brickwork behind them. So they're kind of assessing exactly how they're going to frame this out and be able to remove these mosaics. See, again, they had to be marked "Do not touch," so that they wouldn't rip this down. You can kind of see right now in the background on the right-hand side there, the whole back of the building is already gone. You'll see another shot in, I think, a second that shows the full extent of what the rest of the building looked like at this point. So again, this is in about September 2017. So there you can see what the rest of the building looked like at this point. This foreground area is the printery building. In the back, I believe, was where the powerhouse was. They had already worked on demolishing. You can see there's kind of red pipes in the background. As this was going on, they're kind of picking through and sorting all the different types of metals and scrap to be taken away or remelted or whatever they were doing with it. So this was an active work site as we were in there doing this. Again, this took about 3 days total to go through. So here you can see them putting, kind of reinforcing the wall behind the mosaics. Again, I think you'll see in a bit, they framed this out. They basically cut around the mosaic and built a frame on it. There you can see them demolishing the building as we were in there. This is the other mosaic on the other side. Again, putting that protective wrapping over it. So you can see on the left-hand side here, this is actually when they're about to come in with the forklift, but they realized it wasn't going to fit. So they had to cut part of the framing of the door off to be able to get it out of there. So now you can see on the back of that wall, they've now kind of plastered over it or put cement on it, I believe it was. You can see underneath where the guy's feet are right there, they've cut that area out. So what they did, and you'll see in a bit again, they just lifted it out with a forklift. So they framed it out and put basically kind of like a pallet sort of setup on it so that it could just be taken straight out the wall. There's it framed out. You can see on the bottom here, they had these little metal things where you could get the prongs of the forklift straight in. So they just came right in, put it in there, and then moved it straight out. Kind of a very nice, easy setup, and it went very smoothly for us. They did a fantastic job. You can see the forklift from the front side. And then cutting the rest of the mural out, you can see it's kind of boxed out on the sides there. And then they went a little fast, but they just moved it straight out. And there's the final product. And they loaded these on trucks and took them to the museum. So that was a very interesting project to see just how they framed everything out and were able to remove it. Obviously, we were very happy to be able to conserve these, and they're on loan to the museum. So we're very very appreciative of the building owners to loaning these to us. I believe the rest of these are actually inside the tower. We got a little bit of a peek inside. This is 2017. This is, like, if I remember correctly, the loading dock in the mailroom area. So these are mainly from the kind of patrol offices where security and things would be. This is a little on the nose, but in there was a newspaper that Steel's future looks brighter. It was left in the tower. This is 2017, years after the Steel obviously went bankrupt. I researched, I think this was from 1992 or so, but this was sitting on the counter inside the tower, which is kind of ironic. There's our curator with the property manager, just looking at some blueprints. So this is the kind of patrol office, security office. You see all the computers and telephones and cameras and TVs to watch security footage there. Question was, who paid for the removal? That's a great question. I can't recall. I think a donor to the museum had funded the removal to save them. I can't quite remember though, because it was a little while ago. But again, as I mentioned before, there's just kind of personal effects left in here. People's manuals. There's ID tags, all kinds of stuff just left in here. So it's a little creepy, a little apocalyptic almost. You can see these are all like the master keys. It's a little blurry, but there is no light in there. So these are kind of all the master keys to the entire building. Again, people's personal effects. Somebody left a Dorney Park teddy bear in there. So these were the last water meter readings taken in the building. They did them up until 2009. Somebody asked, why was everything left untouched and just abandoned? I'm not really sure, honestly, and I haven't been able to find anyone that that's been able to give me a good answer. I don't know if it was just sudden job losses or people just didn't want their stuff or whatever. But it was, very interesting to kind of see. These are actually kind of cool. We still haven't been able to deduce why they're there. These are wooden patterns that are used in the casting process. Our historian is not entirely sure why these would have been over there, because these are used in industrial manufacturing and casting, which would be done, at the main plant. Why these would be in an administrative building where the headquarters are, we haven't really been able to determine. Again, these were taken in 2017, but before the building was demolished, we were actually able to get some of these wooden patterns out. So we do have some of these in our collection now. So these would have been used in either casting rail parts or casting wheels, all kinds of different things. There's some more wooden patterns. So you kind of saw the state of the building in 2014. This is the state of the, right to the left, the lobby area in 2017. They started taking some of the planters out, so obviously a little bit dustier since they've been starting to do some work there. They've been taking down some of the artwork. And that's the state of the lobby area in 2017. Still pretty intact, still pretty clean. You can see the computers, phones, and everything are still there. But they're obviously starting to do some work on the inside and get things ready. I think that's it for this one. Yep. So the next time I was in the building was 2 years afterwards, in March. This is when we knew the building was coming down at this point. It was announced. We got to go inside. take a look and see if there are any artifacts or anything that we wanted to get out of the building. So we took 3 trips over. So I'll kind of just go through some photos, show you guys what that process was like. So I believe these are all in order of how they were taken. So this was the first time I actually got to go over to the building. This is the first time I had been in there in 2 years. So it's interesting to see the contrast, the state of the building. This is underneath. This is like in the loading dock and mailroom area again. You can see some people got in there and drew some graffiti. So these are those doors that I was talking about. These came from upstairs in the executive suites. Unbelievably heavy, probably like mahogany wood doors. We do have, I believe, several of these in the museum's collection now. They're being housed at one of our offsite storage facilities. So again, there was no lights in here. This is in the parking garage area. So apologies for kind of the not great shot. But this is kind of what we were dealing with. So what they were doing from floor to floor is they took the elevator shafts and turned them kind of into trash chutes. And they were just kind of tossing everything down the elevator chutes, and then taking all of that and putting it in the parking garage underneath the tower. So there are these giant mounds of everything. I mean, you can see like water bottles in there, just all kinds of stuff. So we're kind of like playing American pickers and just walking through and trying to pull out whatever we could from these. So if you remember those stairs from before that I had showed, those stairs are right around this area. It's covered up at this point, but right here is where that you'll see in a bit. There's an escalator that also goes down to the same area. That's where those stairs and the escalator lead to. So you can see the first part of the building is pretty much stripped out and gutted. These stairs right here and this upper area on the first floor, that's where that library is that I had showed you before. So it's kind of like that little first floor mezzanine spot. And there's the stairs up to that library. You can see all the parts that were grass before are now, now being graded and prepped for demolition. So that's the state of the fountain as of March 2019. Prior to demolition or implosion, they removed the fountain. The property owners have it off-site, and from what I've heard, I believe they're having it restored. I believe the plan is to have it as part of the park that they're building, as part of the new development that's going in there. So you can see here a little bit different view from 2017 and 2014. Obviously, they've gutted out some of the building. They've started boarding up some of the windows that have blown in and stuff. So it's getting a little bit more ragged looking as they're getting towards implosion. You can also see here on the left-hand side here, they put on this elevator. So all the power was cut to the building. The only power they had in there was for tools, and they had a lighting in throughout the basement, so you could see in the basement. But so the elevator wasn't active anymore, so they had this big elevator shaft that they had kind of bolted onto the building. So that's how they had access to the different floors into the rooftop. Actually, that's wrong. This didn't go to the rooftop. This went to the top floor, and then you had to take the stairs to the rooftop. So this is inside that elevator going up. It was kind of rickety and little nerve-wracking going up this. But that's a view from inside that elevator, almost at the top of the building. So this is the top floor. Again, this is March 2019. So this is about 2 months before the implosion. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is part of the HVAC system that's stamped with one of the Bethlehem I-beam logos. Obviously, a lot of gutting and interior demolition, so that's what all these cinder blocks are from. So these are kind of cool. These are, I also thank our historian for giving me the idea of getting these photos. These are down the elevator shafts from the top floor. So these are 21 floors straight down. So that's what the kind of vertigo-inducing view looks like from the top of the tower looking straight down into the elevator shaft. So this is from the rooftop of the building. I wasn't actually, this is the first time, as I said, that we got to go over to the building. So I wasn't even expecting to go on the roof this day. So I was a little underprepared with what camera gear I brought. So these are just some random shots from the top of the tower. I've got some more later on. So that's down from the rooftop looking over the edge of the building. That's our historian, Mike Piersa, posing at the top. Kind of cool. You can see the steel stacks in the background here. And so you can see the rest of the site now. This is the outline of where that annex building used to be. This back here is where that printery building that we're in before, that's gone now. So you can see the kind of progress of the site. These are all the parking spots in the tower area. Some more shots of the rooftop. So there's a good view of that elevator that we took. And you can see the fountain down below. It's a black and white shot of the same thing. So that's the door into the rooftop. It's another view of that elevator. So this is a kind of wide sweeping view of what it looks like from the rooftop of Martin Tower. This right here is 8th Avenue to kind of orient yourself. If I'm looking at it right, I think I am. Yeah. So here's the Wawa that's right there. So definitely an interesting perspective that you definitely will never get to see again. So these are kind of cool. These are the part of the elevator system on the rooftop. So these are the things that drove all the elevator shafts and everything, some of the electrical work up there. And I don't think anyone's ever seen these photos before. So you guys are the first ones ever really seeing these. So definitely a rare chance to look at these. Again, these are the cables and the elevators for the elevator system. And this is the stairway going back down from the rooftop. Those are the elevators that I had mentioned. Just some more scenic shots of the inside. Again, if anybody has any questions, just ask them in the chat and I'll kind of answer as we go on. I'm probably not going to do a big Q&A thing at the end, but feel free to ask anything that you'd like to know about. So these are taken, I believe, from the 7th floor. We stopped on the way down on one of the other floors. Some more of the electrical work that was inside. You can see these elevator shafts say keep out because if you open them and went down them, you'd fall 6 stories down. The old water fountains. So this is the second time we went over to the tower. This is when we went over to take artifacts out. We had a great crew of volunteers with us and our staff members, our historian, our curators, that helped us take out a ton of paperwork that otherwise would have been lost. And obviously, we're thankful to the property owners and the property manager and the building owners to letting us go in there and do this. Otherwise, all this material would just be going in a pile. So these are blueprints, various documents and things that were just taken out, kind of stashed in the parking garage underneath the tower for us to take a look through. These are blueprint, like filing cabinets. So that's the entryway into the parking garage. So that's the entryway to where we were at inside underneath the building for these. It's more the exterior. A lot of these are exterior shots. You're going to see a lot of the kind of rubble of what they had done so far, and the kind of what they had demolished already. This is a shot of one of the doors of either the barbershop area or the gift shop area down below. You can see they were etched with these very cool I-beam designs. The glass was extremely thick. And we have 1 or 2 of these doors in the museum's collection now. So we were able to save a couple of them, which was awesome. Again, this is looking out. This is kind of where the annex and the auditorium areas were. Just more of the rubble of the stuff that they had already brought down. Some more of the blueprints that we were looking at. Here's some of our volunteers loading things up. So again, this is kind of a wider shot. Not very great because there was no lighting. But this is kind of what we were working with, just piles and piles of everything you could imagine. So we had to kind of sort through and pick through and find what we could, take out what we could. This is a funny one, Liberty High School baseball basket bingo. An old sign from, I'm guessing they had one at Martin Tower at some point. These are kind of cool. These are the employee lockers that are below the tower with everybody's names still on them. If anybody recognizes any names, shout about in the comments. So these are down below under the boiler room, or in the boiler room area. I think this is like considered the sub basement. If anybody's watching that knows better, they can correct me in the comments. But this is really interesting. Huge boiler system to power that building. More of that stair and escalator area. A wider shot of the building. Somebody asked, what was the initial cost to build Martin Tower? That is a great question that I don't know if I've ever found the answer to. I'm sure it's out there. But if I find that, I'm going to look for that later. And if I find it, I'll post it on our Facebook page. That's a great question. So this was behind the building. I think you'll be able to see this from the rooftop later on. But these are beams that were part of the Annex building. Somebody asked, was there ever a possibility of holding an auction of the remaining pieces in the building? I'm not sure about that because, yep, I don't know. I'm not sure what happened to a lot of stuff that was in there, what the building owners had done with it. I don't know if they have it or where it's at, but that's one thing I'm not privy to knowing. Again, these are the back annex beams. You can see one is stamped Bethlehem there. Not all of them were, interestingly enough, but there were a couple that had Bethlehem on them. Somebody asked, wasn't Xerox or UBM housed in the building at one point? I believe both of them were. I mentioned before, Union Pacific was in there. EDS, I believe, was in there at one point. Dun and Bradstreet. So there were a couple different other companies besides Bethlehem Steel that were in there. Some more shots of the beams outside. Another one stamped with Bethlehem. Again, these are the escalators that would take you up to the first floor of the tower. And again, these are down below near that barber shop and gift shop area. So you can see all those really thick window panes and doors. So this is what the front of the building looked like as of March 2019. Right behind me would be where the fountain was. So right inside this front area would be where the front desk was. To the right would be where the library mezzanine level was and kind of like a sitting area. And off to the left was the bathrooms and went to kind of the annex buildings. It's another shot of the front of the building with the fountain in it. It's a close-up of the beams that made up the entryway. So I said you see Jeremy in a little bit. That's another photographer. There were two with us. One was Jeremy Blakesley. He is shooting large format film during this visit. And he's on Instagram at Urban Archaeology if you want to go follow him. He's got great work. So he was there shooting some large format stuff that day. And there was another photographer with us, Alicia Ivzuk, and she was shooting medium format 6x17 film and some digital stuff as well. So there are two other photographers that were with me this day, and I believe the next day that we went as well. So you can see how large the structural beams were that made up the floor part of the building. So if you see in the foreground here where these big wooden covers are, that is where that escalator goes to, up to the first floor. So if you keep seeing the escalator, that's where it goes to on that first floor there. This is again down in the boiler room. These are a little bit better lit. Jeremy had some, they're called LumaCubes. They're basically LED lights that gave us a little bit more visibility than just using a flashlight, evened out the lighting a little bit more. So we were able to get some better shots of the boiler room. Here's a funny one. Jeremy had a headlamp on. So this is him going through my shot with his headlamp on. Got a cool kind of a streak, light streak there. That's probably the best one of the boiler areas. You can see how kind of grimy it was and kind of the depth of how large it was. So this is, again, back in the kind of service area. These are obviously some like heating ducts or HVAC system. And if you look back here, if you'll see this kind of doorway back here, that doorway leads to where this next picture was taken, which was some kind of like an emergency exit sort of thing. So I believe these are on the next visit. This is when we actually got access to the rooftop again. So definitely some very interesting perspectives that, you know, you'll never really get again. So, and it's kind of disorienting if you're familiar with Bethlehem to look at it like this. So this is the Boyd Theater on Broad Street. This is the One Plaza on Broad Street, and obviously steel stacks in the backgrounds. This is over at the main plant at Bethlehem Steel. So kind of a very, very unique viewpoint of Bethlehem. It's Nichman Middle School from the rooftop. That's Jeremy again. So here's a little bit wider view of what you just saw before. 378's off on the right-hand side. Again, steel stacks in the background, St. Michael's Cemetery up here. You have the Sands over here, machine shop number 2 over here at the main plant. It's Lehigh Valley Health Network, Muhlenberg from the rooftop. And that's Lehigh Valley International Airport. And Allentown State Hospitals. You can see it from there, which is the next demolition project in Lehigh Valley. This is down 8th Avenue. Definitely a view that most people haven't ever seen before. Hi, Denise. So this is a really cool panorama photo, pretty much of the entirety of part of Bethlehem. So you got a lot of the south side here. This is zoomed out so you can't see it very well, but over here is the hill-to-hill bridge. 378, obviously. If I remember it after this, I'll blow this up so you guys can see a little bit more in detail of how detailed these photos are. There's another one, shows almost the entirety of the area. Back here, you can see all the industrial park buildings that have gone up. And again, this is Broad Street in Bethlehem, steel stacks in the background. Hill-to-hill bridge. Just a shot through one of the broken window panes. I think some of these are just, that was just an interior shot of the top floor. And these again are these orange beams are the ones from the Annex Buildings behind the tower. So these were, nicely stacked. There's another kind of shot where you can see what the building looks like at this point in time. Again, this is March 2019. You can see they've already started making some of the cuts across the building in preparation for implosion. They've got one here, they've got one here, they've got one up here. So that's it for prior to implosion, or when we were in March. We've got a couple that were just prior. This is a week before the implosion. Some of these are a week beforehand. Some of them are a day beforehand. So there's a very nice pilot by the name of Ted Rosenberger, based out of Allentown, Queen City Airport. He owns Vertiview, which is a air transportation service. He was nice enough to let me in his helicopter for the implosion day, and he decided that we wanted to take a test flight before we went up on implosion day. So we went up a week beforehand just to kind of see, with the flight restrictions, we had to be a half mile out from the implosion. So we wanted to go through and see exactly how far out that is, what kind of cameras I wanted to be shooting, what kind of lenses I wanted to have with me. So we took a flight on a beautiful day. Robbie asks, how far away in terms of proximity was the button on the day of the implosion? From what I understand, the person who pressed the button per se was kind of near the medical buildings, like in between the Wawa and the tower. There's like medical buildings there. There's kind of a stage in the parking lot. I think they were in that area, if I remember properly. So this is just us gearing up for the flight before the implosion. Kind of a nice black and white view of 378 interchange right by the tower. So obviously you have 8th Avenue over here. That's the field at Moravian. And I'm gonna try to find for you guys. I'm gonna see if I have it. I've got a really cool video of us flying over the building. Actually, yeah, there we go. Gonna load it on my computer so I can show you guys. Some more exterior shots of the tower. This is a beautiful day that we got to do this. So the lighting was really nice. You can see some nice exterior shots. So this is where that printery building was. And these two kind of prong lighter areas were where those annex buildings were. Back here is the powerhouse and all that stuff. So this is where that primary building was, and these two kind of prong lighter areas where buildings were. Back here is the powerhouse and all that stuff. Just give me 1 second. I messed up my spot there. So this is, I think, one of my favorite photos from that pre-implosion flight. You can see, the entirety of the area with the 378 interchange. Looks really cool. So these are, we did a really kind of low flight right over the building. Sorry, my computer is being not cooperating with me too well. Let's try that again. So that's flying right over the building. Again, we kind of went like right over top of it, which was pretty amazing. So that's probably the closest you'll see of that. And there you can see really well those cuts in there. So these are some shots, I think, the day beforehand. Kind of a vertical panorama of that view. Funny kind of sign there. Do not fight explosive fires, explosive stored on this site. So obviously this is right before the implosion, so they already had all the explosives there. Some kind of scenic shots. They already had, this is, I believe, a medical building across the street, had already tenanted off. I think that's the last one in this collection. So the building with the 8th Avenue sign. So next up, I'll show you guys the Implosion Day photos. Actually, let me go back here. So this is what I was showing you before. This is the flight over top of the tower. You can actually see in this video the elevator is going up as we're flying over it. So that was a pretty neat experience. So now I'll show you guys again the Implosion Day photos. These might be a little out of order because I was using a couple different cameras while we were up there. So everything might not be in sequential order. So this is a view of the steel stacks that day. Kind of cool shot. This is a helicopter the morning of. So you can see back here, all the crowds are already kind of gathering. And you've got the water guns shooting off. Oop. As you can see, people are, all over the place. This is the baseball fields, not far from the tower. So we actually had a nose camera on the helicopter that we were in. It's a pretty neat invention. He basically took a drone camera and put it on a gimbal and mounted it on the nose of his helicopter. And he has an operator in the back of the helicopter who is operating the gimbal. And then this was actually patched into WFMZ. We had a remote cell phone connection that we did the video for WFMZ. So if you're watching on the news on FMZ, this is where that footage came from. There were 2 other helicopters in the air, but they were a lot farther away and a lot higher. They were the news cameras. So they have crazy powerful $100,000 lenses that we didn't have, but we did have a pretty cool footage and view that I'll show you in a little bit. Some more of the crowd shots. And somewhere down here, I can't remember exactly where it's at, but if you guys saw the picture floating around the internet of somebody in a wedding gown with the tower imploding in the background, they're down here somewhere getting set up. I did have a zoomed in shot of them somewhere. I don't think it's in this group, but those guys are in here somewhere on one of the baseball fields. So this is the start of the implosion sequence. So you can see kind of the little burst of smoke here as the charges started going off. There's another, I don't think it's in here maybe. Oh yeah, there you go. So you can see that one has some fire coming out. of where the charge went off. And these are obviously thousands of people in the background here, you can see. So definitely kind of a cool viewpoint. Chris Erdman asks, was Rob with me that day? Don't believe so, no. It was me, the drone operator, or the camera operator. Ted, who was the pilot, and Ted's son was in the front seat watching. So that's pretty much the whole implosion sequence there. So that's as we circled back around after the smoke was starting to clear. You could see all the people in the background, the smoke. We circled for quite a while afterwards since the news was asking us to keep circling and keep getting some footage. So we stayed up in the air for quite a while. Again, these are a little out of order, so I'll just kind of go back and forth with these to stay for right now. So this is after the implosion. I went over to the site, took some photos. If you didn't get over there that day, it was a madhouse. People were just pulling over on the side of the road all over the place, taking photos. It's kind of a circus. So again, out of order, but you can see all the people in the background here, you know, crowded all around the fields and everything. I do have some photos. I don't think I included them in here, but I have some shots of people on rooftops and stuff like all around the area, which is kind of funny to see. Those are those water guns that were attempting to keep the dust down. More of the crowd shots. So this is kind of like the last line. These are all the emergency management guys up here, and this is like the public line where people are allowed to be at. And so we actually had a guy on the ground with WFMZ. I think that's him right there, actually. His name's Chris Post. He's a reporter from WFMZ. He had a radio and was able to communicate with us in the helicopter and kind of tell us what was going on, and you know, kind of tell us like, oh, you've got 30 seconds left or whatever. So that was nice to have some ground communication from him to tell us what's going on. Actually, yeah, right there you can see that's Chris. That's our guy with WFMZ. You can see their satellite truck, and these are all the emergency management guys. And they sounded sirens and horns and stuff, but we couldn't hear anything from up there. We couldn't hear the building explode. We couldn't hear anything. So it was kind of interesting. Some more of the crowd shots. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's the rooftop guys having a little watch party on the rooftop. It's probably my favorite picture of the actual implosion. You see all the people in the background, and you know, obviously the smoke really flying up. And that's the aftermath. And I thought it was fitting to take a picture of the new tallest building in Lehigh Valley after Martin Towers implosion. So that was actually taken on the way back to the airport that day. Just some more, I think, yep, that's it. So then afterwards, I got to go over to the site the day after the implosion. I think I was the only photographer that was allowed over there to get some pictures to show what the building looked like afterwards, kind of up close and personal. So this was taken, if you remember the elevators that were kind of under the tower before, here's kind of a long shot that shows you what underneath that tower looked like afterwards. I don't know if they're in here, but amazingly enough, all of those glass windows that were in there, I don't think any of them shattered. So the building, you know, really was very precisely imploded. and there wasn't really a lot of, aftershock or anything that, hurt those windows or anything, which is kind of amazing if you think about how tall that building was and how big and how much weight came down on that. So there you can see all the outside sheeting and the beams and everything. This is my favorite. You can see this nice big stamped Bethlehem beam up here. There's only a couple that were actually stamped with Bethlehem that we could find. And immediately after the implosion, you didn't see this. So the building actually settled kind of overnight. The pile settled, and this sort of poked out. So this shows just how precise these explosive charges were. I mean, they, from what I understood from what the contractors told me, they would cut like half of this out, and then the charge would basically cut the other half. So you could see just how precise. I mean, it's really unbelievable how clean they cut these gigantic beams. There you can see more of the building kind of outside sheeting. And that's a kind of a big panorama of the whole pile there. And if you saw that tree in some of the before photos, obviously that's the new view. And off to the left-hand side here, this area, that's where that auditorium entrance and where those escalators and stuff would be. This is actually really cool. I love this. So this is, again, the day after the implosion. Actually, this shot is of the day of the implosion. There's this deer down here. So that was kind of neat and interesting to see. Kathy asked, was any of the exterior sheeting preserved? Not to my knowledge, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't believe that the museum got any, but I'm not sure if it, has been saved elsewhere, or it's going to be used for anything else. And then I believe the last group of photos I have for you guys are from this year. So these are I think these were from January. We actually went over with NMIH and we got some beams. Some of them are going to be used for benches in our park, our outdoor park. Some of them are going to be used for hopefully art projects, and some of them are going to be used. We also got some smaller ones that are going to hopefully be used for some either souvenirs that you can buy from the museum. So keep tuned for that. We'll be having more information about that soon, but some of them are definitely going to be used for an outdoor park area that the museum is building right on our plaza. So you can see it kind of how they the kind of progress that they were making. And if you've been over to the site since, you know that this pile has shrunk dramatically. You can't see it in these photos, but behind the pile, they were doing a lot of work with processing the concrete to infill the land, and taking the beams out to cut them up and to ship them out to be reused. So that's our historian, Mike, on the left-hand side, our museum preparator, Frank Sattler, on the right-hand side. And that's one of the contractors in the middle there who's worked closely with us throughout the process. So these are selecting some beams. We're trying to find the straightest, least demolished beams that we could for the museum to save. Obviously, you can see the amount of power. I mean, these beams were, I think they were like something like 300 pounds per foot long. So just to be bent like that is crazy. So it's kind of hard to find ones that were straight, but we found a couple. And these are loading them onto a truck. This gentleman was gracious enough to donate his services and bring his truck out for us to take these beams back to the museum. And that's us offloading the beams in our outdoor area where they're currently hanging out. And we're almost done. So if anybody has any last questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I think that's it. And I'll also bring up the view of the implosion from the helicopter. So this is what the nose cam of the helicopter saw. So he slowed it down so it's nice and slow-mo. But so that's what it looked like from the air and what we saw from the helicopter. So it's definitely an interesting view and an interesting day. But I want to thank everybody for joining me today. We have a couple other great programs coming out this week. Tomorrow is a very timely one. We have Jim Higgins, who's going to be speaking on Bethlehem Steel and how they handled the 1918 flu pandemic. Obviously, with everything going on in the world right now, it's a very timely topic. A great look back at some industrial history. We also have someone from Smithsonian's National Museum of American History who's going to be doing a presentation on historic mining photography. So check out our website, NMIH.org, to find out some of those programs that are coming up. And we have some other ways that you can help out the museum, whether it's buying a membership for when we open back up. It'll be good for a year from our new opening date. We have an ebook that you can download. You can adopt artifacts. There's a bunch of different ways that you can help NMIH while we're closed. And if you're able to, we would love to have you check those out and help in any way possible. But thanks for coming out. And if anyone has kids, we have online industrial story time. Daily, you can find the times and everything on our website, again, NMIH.org. And those are all streaming live on Facebook. So thanks for everybody for joining and have a good day.